Hello guys, this is going to be a whole new thing for me. It's in this series, it's going to be like Fen recommends, but I'm going to focus on new movies, specifically movies that I just saw in theaters. And for my first episode, we're going to talk about Black Panther. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit of information. It won't be as extensive because it is a newer movie. I'm just going to... First, I'll say the movie is rated PG-13, and it's about 2 hours and 14 minutes. Typical Marvel movie length. When I give these stats, keep in mind that these are the stats I checked right now. They can change because it just got in theaters, so they can change a bit. But this is what they were at when I checked. It had 7.9 out of 10 on IMDb with a little over 88,000 users so far. It has 84 on Metacritic with 5.3 critics. It stars Chadwick Boseman, who played Jackie Robinson in 42, another good movie. And it also stars Michael B. Jordan, who was in Creed, who played Creed's son. It's directed by Ryan Coogler, who also directed Creed. And he does something kind of cool in this movie, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has 97% by critics, with over 300 critics. Good God, 97. It has 77% by audiences with over 1,200. That could change over time. And the critic consensus is, for Rotten Tomatoes, is Black Panther elevates superhero cinema to thrilling new heights while telling one of the MCU's most absorbing stories and introducing some of its most most fully realized characters. And I'm going to talk more about movies than I do with Fen Recommends. Pretty much the premise is, at the end of Civil War, Black Panther, he is becoming king, goes through the ceremony, he becomes king. We see the world, which is awesome. We see his gadgets, we see how he works. We're introduced to some characters, some good ones, and the thing is that even though he's just becoming king, we just see him become Black Panther in Civil War. He definitely has an aura of he's been doing it for quite a long time. He feels mature and older, kind of like Tony Stark, but a little bit more. It doesn't feel like he improvises all the time. It feels like he does know what he's doing. Whereas Tony Stark, when he started, you definitely feel like he kind of improvised a lot. He's the king, but a group of villains. One, Andy Serkis plays him. He was in Age of Ultron, and in this one, he's sporting, spoilers in case you didn't see Age of Ultron. He's spoiling a metallic arm, a metal arm that has a laser gun built in it. So there's that. And we got a mysterious new character, new villain, Michael B. Jordan. Here's the thing that I love about this movie. This movie is probably the most adult one. I mean, Civil War kind of flirted with it, but this one really went with it. It talked really about race, but it did it in a way that I loved. Instead of preaching how racism was bad, it took perspectives of different cultures and how they viewed themselves and their people, and compared and contrast. Like the villain, he was raised... There's a lot that happens, but pretty much the villain was raised. He's related to Black Panther in a way, and he was abandoned because no one knew about him. And this is spoilers, by the way. And he grew up with the mentality that fight fire with fire, kind of Malcolm X style. And he butts heads with, because he fights Black Panther, and he's an experienced fighter, and everyone thinks he's dead, but he's not dead, of course. And he becomes king for a bit, and he clashes with the tribes, because the Wakanda it has 6 tribes in it, with one of the tribes being the Black Panther tribe, and the tribes are cool looking too. It's a very colorful world. It feels like a worldly international film. It's not like just it's another superhero movie in New York or whatever. It feels like superheroes if they weren't in America. That's another cool aspect about it. But yeah, he talks about freeing the people, our people, and of course you know he's talking about African Americans, but for the tribes, they think they think, what are you talking about? Our people's here. And that's what I love, is the fact that his idea of our people is different from their idea of our people, because he thinks our people is, he associates that with color. They associate it with culture. And of course, you can make the case Michael B. Jordan also associated with culture, but you can tell that they view troubles differently. Of course, granted, one leader of the tribe does support it, but I think he does it because not of what he preaches, because what he did. And that's, I won't talk about that spoiler, but Michael B. Jordan is an amazing villain in this movie. And definitely up there with Loki. And a lot of it has to do with that he feels human. And it goes to show you that the best villains make you believe that they could be the hero. And he does that in this film. He has great motivation. He has great points. And sure, he is a bad guy. And he does do things that bad guys do. But he has points that make you win. And there's some great parallels between him and Black Panther. Great parallels of they go on, each of them goes on a vision quest when they take up become king. And they both talk to their now deceased father. And they're both very great and compelling, but their own different way too. And I had to talk about the ending, and I feel like a lot of people, the audience is why it's a little lower than what I feel like it should be. I feel like it should be higher than 77. And I feel like a lot of it's because it's all due to the political climate that we're in now. And I think, and plus the Rotten Tomatoes fucking bullshit, but I feel like it does a good job, not just being like, oh, racism's bad or whatever, but it's like, but showing the perspectives of culture, the culture of Wakanda, what they believe in, who's with them and who's not with them, is different from how Michael B. Jordan views it. And it's really all based on the environments they were raised up in and how it molded them. There's one part of the movie that I feel it's towards the end. The climax is great. But, you know, spoilers in case you don't want to know how the movie ends right here. Skip over this till about the end, and I'll give my overall analysis. But quickly, Michael B. Jordan's character does die. And on one hand, he dies at the end. And he dies in a way that fits his character, and it's a great death, and it's beautiful, and it's awesome. But deep in my mind, I am thinking, God damn it, Marvel, you killed another fucking villain. They keep killing their fucking villains, and that pisses me off, because then it's like we don't need to use them again. And on one hand, sure, most cases, I understand why they would kill the villain, because it's a bad guy. You don't let bad guys live. You kill them. And it's like, I get it, but it's like, it really ruins chances for interesting storylines, because you're constantly introducing new villains, their new backstories, and you're never continuing stories. You're just ending them. And they do that with a lot of villains, specifically Iron Man killing villains. All his villains are dead. Captain America, Red Skull, we don't fucking know where the fuck Red Skull is. A lot of people think he's dead, but I still hold hope. We never see him actually die. But Alexander Pierce, I guess you would call him the villain of of Winter Soldier, even though, you know, whatever, and he died, but I don't think it was the one part of it was more Hydra was the villain. It was more of an organizational thing than a main character. But, Zemo kept alive. And I love Zemo. I like Zemo as a villain. A lot of people may disagree with me on that, but that's a whole nother discussion, but yeah, and it ends good. The music in this movie is fucking awesome. A great score. Probably one of my favorite Marvel scores. And that's the thing about this movie that I was going to talk about. The director of this movie he knew how I read some trivia on this movie, and he wanted to make this movie stand apart from the rest of MCU in a good way, because he felt like all the Marvel movies were directed and made by the same people, and they kind of were. Of course, granted, directors were under heavy scrutiny because they want a uniform movie, and I like that he made it a little different, because it doesn't feel like. I will tell you this: there aren't a lot of laughs in this movie. There really aren't. There aren't a lot of laughs in this. I mean, there's some laughs, but it's definitely one of the more dramatic Marvel movies, and in a good way. And I like that they give the director some creative freedom in making the movie his own. Because I have to tell you, I love Marvel movies. I really do. I still watch them. They're great. There are definitely times where I'm like, be a little different. And to their credit, they're doing a lot of that lately. I mean, Thor Ragnarok was awesome. And yeah, it's a great movie. I'm going to summarize it. I love it. I think it's an awesome movie. I think it's great. I will say this, when I was watching it, I was like, this is typical Marvel origin story thing, but I have to tell you, after the movie ended, after I left, the more and more I thought about it, the more and more I loved it. It did a lot of things good and right. And it made... Yeah, and I love it. Was a great movie. I love the characters. I love the atmosphere. I love the soundtrack, and yeah, there's not really more I can say about it. I guess a little bit more about what I'm doing here. Now I don't know if I'm going to talk about movies that I just saw in theaters or movies that I saw in theaters in general. The point of this show is really to kind of talk about movies that are out right now. So if you're looking for something new to go by, this is it. So I think I'm just going to focus on movies I just saw in theaters and not movies that I saw in theaters in general, because then I would talk about movies I saw when I was a kid, like Inspector Gadget I saw in theaters. And I may do that at some point, but for now I'm going to focus on movies I just saw in theaters. New movies. Yeah, movies that I saw in theaters that are out as of right now. And yeah, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe the videos, and keep watching. I'm going to have a channel announcement coming up pretty soon about the current state of the channel, because, you know, school year for me is ending and all that, but I'll talk about that in another video. But yeah, thanks for watching. Have a good day.